Let's talk about Kosmo Foto Mono. This is a 100 speed black and white film available in 35mm and in 120. In 2017, Stephen Dowling was running a popular photography blog called Zorky Photo. After being inspired by Bellamy Hunt, also known as Japan Camera Hunter, and his release of JCH Street Pan 400, Stephen decided that he wanted to release and market and distribute his own brand of black and white film. After running into some copyright issues with the name Zorky, Stephen decided to rebrand using the name Kosmo Foto, and thus Kosmo Foto Mono was born. We're going to take a look at this film, but also Stephen Dowling himself was nice enough to spend a few minutes and talk about this process of bringing this film to life. So let's talk to Stephen about who he is and what he does.
I'm Stephen Dowling. I'm the founder and editor of Kosmo Foto, which is a film photography blog based in London. I started the blog in about 2012, I think. When I was first getting into film photography seriously, I was a freelance journalist and didn't have a lot of disposable income. So rather than buying Leicas and Contaxes like all the cool kids are today, I was buying Zorkis and Zenits and Praktikas because they were pretty cheap. So I had a bit of an affinity and interest in like Soviet and East German cameras.
Stephen talked to us about what at the time seemed like a pretty major stumbling block, and that was having to rebrand his blog and also his soon-to-be released film.
My blog used to be called Zorky Photo, but because Zorky is still a trademark of the company that made the Zorky cameras in the Soviet Union days. When it came to releasing a film, which I did in 2017, I changed the name of the blog and the company to Kosmo Foto.
After having run the blog for a number of years, in 2017, Stephen decided to take on a pretty major undertaking, to release and market his own brand of film. So let's hear what he has to say about that.
So I was inspired by Bellamy Hunt, who runs Japan Camera Hunter.
Right.
Who I remember I was sitting at work and just saw a story on Facebook that with him announcing his new film, Japan Camera Hunter Street Pan 4, being absolutely blown away. Just like, wow, what an amazing thing to do. And it obviously I bought some film after he announced it, and it just got me thinking. And it's like, well, why don't I try and do something similar? So I knew Bellamy anyway. We'd sort of conversed quite a bit over the previous years, and I'd written a few things for Japan Camera Hunter. And he said, oh, well, I can actually give you a few pointers because I've learned a lot along the way, in producing this film. And I thought 100 was a really good film to start with. Because a lot of the people who are doing this, rebranding films, tend to start with a 400 film. So I wanted to do something a bit different.
Sure.
And B, because most cameras that don't DX code, their default is 100. If you're shooting on a little plastic fantastic compact camera that can't read the DX code, it'll just go to 100. So I was able to bring out a product that didn't have like a heavyweight price tag either. I wanted something that was a reasonable price so that people would try it, rather than like trying to bring out this sort of premium product with a sort of slightly frightening price tag.
So one thing that I was really curious about was the process and length of a project like this. So Stephen was nice enough to answer those questions for us too.
Pretty much 12 months.
12 months.
I think that's from when I first saw Bellamy's film to doing the announcement, which I think was around July 2017. So what I did then was I announced the film and took pre-orders, but I didn't actually ask for people's money, because I thought I just seen too many things happening over the preceding few years with Kickstarters that never quite happened, Indiegogos that never quite happened. I mean, I just wanted to get people interested, but not look like I was trying to grab their money before something actually arrived.
One of the more unique things about this film is its branding. Honestly, the packaging is really beautiful. The consensus about the packaging, the marketing, all the marketing materials is that it's really well designed and beautiful stuff. And Steven talks to us about that.
I sort of played around with, cosmic or Cosmo with a K with a C, and then that Cosmo with a K and photo with an F. It's like, well, that has that sort of Central European / sort of Russian feel to it. And, the whole inspiration for that packaging, which Martin did such an amazing job with, sort of comes from that amazing, like, East European, Russian graphic art from the Cold War period that you saw on everything from posters to camera boxes to Aeroflot posters to boxes. It's just really, really beautiful. You've got to really, really stop people in their tracks and make the box, a work of art, which is certainly, I didn't design it. Martin did. So I think he did a fantastic job.
And what is the name of your designer, Martin?
Martin Duncan. He goes by the name My Mate Does Art.
Okay.
So he was somebody I used to work with at the BBC, and we did this as a little project, and then he's done all the various other design stuff so far. As Kosmo Photo's brought out, a few new things along the way.
Now, one thing I want to touch on is the idea of rebranding, and I want to recognize that this is a rebranded film, and that's something that Steven has always been open about. Rebranding film means that Steven does not own manufacturing facilities that produce this film. There are very few facilities in the world that do that anymore. So he works with a current manufacturer that uses a current emulsion, and Steven uses his marketing and distribution channels to package this and get this sold and into the consumer's hands, into your hands. Some people have raised issue with that idea, and frankly, I don't really care, and here's why. Even though this is an existing film, it's an existing emulsion, it's just rebranded using different marketing materials, could you get this film under a different name with different pricing? Yeah, you probably could. Steven puts his marketing and distribution channels that he has created behind that into marketing this film and getting it into people's hands, getting more film into more people's hands. And I really think that's ultimately what matters. Now, here's an example. You remember going to the grocery store and getting grocery store branded film? Safeway was not making that film. Vons was not making their own film. Walgreens was not making their own film. That was rebranded emulsion. And those retail outlets were using their channels to get film into your hands. It really didn't matter then, and I don't think it really matters now. I think what really matters is that more film is getting into more people's hands through the efforts of companies like Kosmo Foto. I think the film is really beautiful and it's capable of a wide range of things. It's got a great pronounced grain structure. It's got really wonderful medium high contrast. It's really punchy without being too crazy and too contrasty. And it's got, like many negative films, it's got really, really great highlight retention. In fact, what inspired this conversation with Steven in the first place, and what inspired my review of this film, was that back in 2019, before the pandemic, my favorite photos of that year were shot on Kosmo Foto. What I also appreciated about this was that it was so easy to scan and it dries dead flat. It's awesome to work with. Now, this is not a flat contrast film like, say, for example, HP5. This is definitely punchy, contrasty stuff. So if you're into that, and if you like grain, this is a great film, and I really suggest you try it.
Talking about the film, how would you characterize what the film looks like?
It does have a different grain structure, which I would say is a little more old-fashioned than things like Kodak T-Max 100, T-Max 400, which has that modern sort of T-grain emulsion. you get a touch more grain than you usually get in 100 speed film. And I think when you're shooting some of the older cameras, older lenses, really suits that look.
I wouldn't call it high contrast, but I would call it medium high. It's not like a flat contrast film like
No.
an HP5 or anything like that. It's got, I mean, it's got some really rich blacks.
It's got some bite to it, and also it's very forgiving. I mean, the most I pushed it to so far is 400. When I was in Borneo, I was shooting under some rainforest, and you can't shoot a 200mm lens on 100 speed film.
Sure.
A rainforest canopy, it's not going to work out. So I was pushing it to 400, and it looks really nice. But my friend Rob, who I do photo walks with in London, he shot it at 800 on a Olympus XA2, and my friend Sarah has shot it at 1600, shooting some stuff on the London Underground, and it looked brilliant. Looked almost like Tri-X, punchy, but still enough detail in the highlights that it wasn't blowing out like digital does. And I've been impressed that even when you scan something with Kosmo Foto Mono, stuff that at first looks like it's blown out a bit too much when it comes to playing around with the levels, as you're bringing down that sort of at first blinding white, you're actually, the detail's all still there. It dries really flat, so it's very easy to scan with, which is another boon.
Yeah, I'd mentioned to you earlier before we started recording that my favorite personal photos that I took in 2019 were I took a day trip to San Francisco to meet up with some friends, and I shot I think 2 or 3 rolls, and they turned out to be my favorite personal photos of the year. It was a bright, sunny day. A lot of high rises in San Francisco, so a lot of just really stark shadows with sun streaming through, and it just had captured so much detail from the shadows all throughout the highlights. So
that's great. And what were you shooting on? Can you remember?
Yeah, it was a Leica M6, and it was outside of my comfort zone because I normally do not shoot stuff at ISO 100. So I like to stop down. Usually I'm shooting at f11. And then I will usually be zone focusing. So it was a little, especially in shadowy areas where I really had to slow the shutter down a little bit. But I had to really think about, like, okay, don't move so fast. You might have to hold the camera a little more still, or if someone's riding by on a bike, you're probably going to get some blur, because I'm more comfortable shooting at like 400, anywhere from 400 to 1600 is where I'm really comfortable with. Well, Stephen, I don't have any other questions for you. I appreciate the time you took, man.
No problem. Well, I'm happy to chat whenever you have more YouTube chats.